So motherfuckers, in the third round of the Blitz World Champion, I decide to open again with D4. I like what happened in the first game, so I decide to deal with D4 against low-rated players, more solid. My opponent shows the semi-Slav defense, D4, D5, C4, C6. And during the last 2 years or three, I was playing that with black in the majority of my games, so I have some experience with the different colors, so I feel confident to play that position with white too. It shows one of the best lines for white in that position, knight f3, knight f6, c6, knight c3, that's the main move, e6. Maybe I could make e3 too, was so interesting. But okay, knight c3 was the main move, e6. And here white have two options, bishop d5 or e3. But I prefer e3 was more solid. Knight b7, queen c2, bishop d6, b3. I decide to play with fianchetto. Castle. Okay, let's explain how to do here. For example, um, now white have three normal moves: bishop b2, bishop d3, and bishop b2. Why I play bishop b2? Because after bishop b2, here the here black can respond with e5, which is a good move and equals the game. And the problem of bishop d3, of course, the bishop was better placed on d3 than on e2. And in some lines, after you play bishop e2, like 5 moves later, you play bishop d3. But here, after bishop d3, black have e5. So for that reason, bishop e2 was the correct order. And for black, it's more or less the same. You cannot play b6 here because here white have bishop d3. For that reason, after b3, black's first castle, and after bishop e2, black plays b6. So, but it's better to castle first with black to expect what white is going to do. And if white develop bishop d3 or bishop b2, black responds with e5. And after bishop b2 with the normal move, now you can develop normal with fianchetto. Bishop b2, bishop b7, so castle. And here my opponent shows rook c8. So I don't know nothing about that move. Talking about theoretical lines. Because I always play with black in that position, queen e7. And to show us a little bit how would be the line, for example, the normal development was rook e1, rook e8, rook d1, rook d8. And if white places the rooks on d1 and on cb1, with black you should copy your opponent. You should play put the rooks on the same file that your opponent. But okay, rook e1, rook e8, rook d1, rook d8 was the main line. And here white have many moves. One was, for example, e4, who is so typical in that positions. Of course, that's the white plan was play e4 in some moment. And black's plan was or c5 or e5. Depends, black have two different breakthroughs. Okay, for example, e4, you always against e4 you should trade everything. And here you have bishop before rook f1, bishop d6 if you want. And if you want to play for win, knight f8 was fine. Now black is threatening c5. I remember in some lines black plays here f5. So, but that position was equal. But in one moment you should play c5, open this bishop was so important. Bishop d3 you have e5, e4 takes, for example, bishop b1 was a little bit worse. Bishop takes, and b6 was equal. There is an idea with g3 who was so interesting. Here bishop b4 was possible, but h6 is a little bit better. And after bishop f1 trying to go to g2, now black have this plan, bishop b4. Because black's open or his light square, so now the black plan is going to be trade his dark square bishop and try to open the light square. A3, take, and c5. That's the typical plan here in the semi-Slav when white plays g3. And the main move with bishop f1, now e5 and c5 was good moves. I have 2 games playing e5 in that position. That's okay. Let's go with the game. My opponent chose rook d8, rook c8. Here I chose straight move because I play a4. I know that this move was normal against queen e7. Here a4 was interesting option. Threatening a5. No, but after rook c8, a4 have no so sense because now black is coming with c5 so fast. In general, in the opening was used to be better to first develop the rooks and then make moves of pawns like a4. So, but specifically in that position was also normal to place the rook into the center to because now black is threatening is breaking in the center. So the best way to face against that was places the rook on the center. To see how can continue after rook 81 and some theory. Okay, if black plays a normal development move like rook e8 or queen e7, we're going to break with e4. Takes, knight f6, knight f6 and queen c2, and white is slightly better here. And queen e7 was still worse than rook e8 because the same line, but after c5 here we have d5. Open this bishop, the b2 bishop, and closing the b7 bishop, and he cannot take the pawn because rook e1. The tactic was in my favor, but it's because I have the both rooks developed. So here black should react fast with c5. And now I have two main options. So take on d5 or take on c5. The best move was take on c5. Let's see a little bit take on d5. Here black should react taking on d4. And of course you cannot take on e6 because pawn takes here. Okay, that position is equal. But yeah, I prefer black here in general. And okay, if black take here, you take with the knight. Against all the moves you're going to play knight take d5. Rook takes d4, knight d5, and okay, play this position. Because after here, if you simply take on d5, well, I can take on c5 and play queen f5 and then double rooks on the d5, who was the typical plan in that position. And now the machine says that you can play that, but I prefer to hold the queen. And in main d5, you can simply trade and e4 d5. That's plan. So with white here, the best move was take on c5. Now, of course, bishop takes have no so much sense. You simply can take here. If knight takes, you take on d5. Knight takes d5. Usually with black, or you take both with pawns, or you take both with pieces. Was strange to I installed it in d5 and on c5. Also strange to take first with a piece and then with a pawn. It's better or have the two hanging pawns or have zero have the both knights on the center. But be with an isolated pawn was a strange idea. Okay, yes, g takes c5. Okay, yes, if knight takes. Here, bishop c4, attacking the knight. Now e4, queen e7, rook e1, queen c1, bishop e1, and here the white plan was a3 before. And if black takes with the pawn here, now the best plan was rook d2, double rooks on the d5 to put in pressure on the d-pawn. And if black develops normal and plays careless, you can sacrifice a exchange in d5. For example, if plays queen e7, a normal move, rook d1, rook d8, here you can take everything on d5. And the machine prefer white here. See that will have good compensation for the exchange because have the bishop pair and so strong bishop and a pawn for the rook. Knight f6, rook d1 here. No, never trade rooks here. And when you are staying down and your opponent have two rooks and you only one, used to be better to didn't trade your last rook. Here, so rook c1 or bishop d3, but doesn't trade because was better to play one rook against zero rook than two against one. But it's like in all the sports. In basketball, was so easy to score when you are zero against one. When you are two against one, was more difficult to score. And if the game was 10 players against nine, was much more difficult to score. than when you are just two against one. So with more number of unit combats, is less difference of the only one. So don't take rooks. Yes, or bishop d3 or rook c1. And don't take rooks. Okay, let's see how goes the game because I was talking about many lines in the semi-slam, but it's well because not only about you know about theory because you're going to know some concepts and some typical plans of the semi-slam. Okay, I chose a4, stupid move, c5, and here again was trying to simply trade and place the rook into the center. But I still with my stupid plan of a5, I don't know. And here the machine said that my opponent should simply take the pawn. I was planning of I supposed to play knight b5, but simply bishop b8 and no, there's no problem for black. She takes, and here I had the option of play knight b5, again, who was the best, bishop b8, a6, bishop move, and simply take the pawn. Or for example, d3 can be possible, bishop takes and bishop a8. But I play knight takes d4, bad move, because again, black have the possibility of take on a5. It takes on c4. And here again, I should play a6. But I take on c4. Again, my opponent should take on a5. And queen e7. And I finally play a6. So was my idea of or my plan. Bishop a8 and knight c5. Here it looks good that I place the pawn on a6 and everything, but the position is equal because I have this bad c4 pawn, black have the c5 square for his knight, the bishops on b8 and e8 are attacking my king now, scary way. So for that reason, the machine says equal and slightly better black in that position. Because what I only do was place the pawn on a6. So of course was good play, but I didn't make more things. And okay, and the b5 square for the knight. Finally, I place the rook into the center, knight c5. And here I play bishop f3, who positionally was a good move. Because can look that the a8 bishop have no squares and it's a little bit trap, but the reality is that this bishop was strong. He's attacking my king, so and the e2 bishop with the pawn on c4. In general, the light square bishop with the pawn on c4 becomes more or less bad. It's like the dark bishop something with a pawn on c5 becomes so bad. So here I play bishop f3, who was positionally a good move, but the machine prefer a little bit to pin the knight with bishop a3. That's a move that the machine recommend me more times during the game. So bishop a3 pinning the knight looks like that. Okay, bishop f3, take a5. Here I place the queen in the hole. I thought that could be interesting. Rook f8, h3, queen e6. I decide to simply trade. And here I chose a strange plan. I play rook a3. Sorry, because I simply don't know what to do. Just after if I play 92, I was thinking that my opponent have things like 93, and I simply don't know what to do. And my opponent maybe knight b3 is not fair because I have rook a3, but I just simply doesn't know what to do. So I decided to play rook e3 to finally take the b3 square and defend the d3 square, but wasn't the best. Bishop a3 was better, and he cannot take here because bishop b6. So I play rook a3 a little bit strange, rook king f8. Now 91 was better because 92 was better, sorry, because the knight on f3 was misplaced. But okay, I came with the king to the center, king f1. Again 92 was the best, king e2, rook d8, here I trade, and here I have the tactic that I saw the tactic, but I didn't believe in that. Of course, it's a low time games, but my intuition here fails. Bishop takes, and knight a7, but he's going to defend the promotion. He can. But okay, my intuition fails, and I haven't time to calculate, so I play 95. 95, this move has no sense. It's just to make a move in Blitz because we have no time, so it's just to make a move and attack a piece, but this move have no sense. Rook e7, d4, trying to take space there. The space who finally helped me to win the game. Knight f3, 98, good move on my opponent. And here was the rook e1 because the rook was completely misplaced on e3. And now I'm coming to the one with the rook. Okay, 93, 97, 95. And apart, the knight was well placed on c3 because it's defending the d6 and c7 jumps of the knight. So 93 was so strange. Take, rook d7, and here again I should play 92, defending d4 and 94. Placing well the pieces because the knight on f3 was so misplaced. I play bishop c3, a small improvement, but the problem is that here black has king d6, followed by king d5, and winning the game. That's why bishop c3 is a losing move. Okay, my opponent played bishop d6, better. Here 92 again was always the best, bishop d4. And that moment I missed many times the tactic of 94, but no, me and my opponent doesn't see the move. So rook e8, 92, rook c8, d4. Here again black have this tactic, 94. First, if that, and if that. So f6, h4, the same tactic again, of course, takes, d6. Yeah, rook f3 was interesting too, but h5 was good. Now the tactic doesn't work because the f6 pawn is hanging. Oh, sorry, I have rook f3 here first, sorry. And the f6 pawn is going to fall. So h5, and I was thinking that g6 was a bad move because this gives me the h6 after h5, g5. Now I have the f5 square who was great for a knight. And if I take the h pawn, maybe this pawn is going to go like happening again. Here, rook f3 was better attacking the pawn. I chose more solid move f3 with the plan of defend the pawn to can go with the knight to f5. And that's what I do. King 7, pin the knight was better. Always the pins are great. Rook c3. But okay, I start with my plan of move my knight. Take, b5, knight f5. And now I'm winning. I don't know why I didn't play rook c3. I I was thinking that I prefer the rook to defend the stupid pawns, but the knight endgame was also similar to the king's endgame. And what's the best thing in the king's endgame? A protected passport was great. A protected passport in a king's endgame. Here I have two, and in different size. One on d5 and the other on h5. This was unstoppable, of course. But I don't understand why I play knight h6. I don't know what I prefer to maintain rooks here. It was a stupid decision. Of course, I still be winning, but it's stupid. King b6, knight f5 was better. I played knight f7, rook f8, knight d6, knight c5, a6 finally, rook h8. Here I can play rook a1 because I have this tactic, but I of course I can see. So I play knight f5 so fast, simply defending the pawn and avoiding the problems before rook a1, but here I won more or less easy. Rook h1, defending, and now 96, 97, 97, and taking the rook. But I want to show us how I end the game because here, of course, I am a rook up. But I want to show us how I used to end the game. Oh, okay, here I lost the knight. I didn't see that. I missed the knight. But for example, in that position, here instead of try to win with the rook or something, no, I just trade the rook for the knight and reaching a winning king second and finally winning the game. Because my king reached I know that my king reached the 6th rank. And with your king reached the 6th rank is always winning. And apart, I have a protected passport like I told in the video that was the best thing in a king second. So okay, I don't like this game so much, of course. Just first, okay, the opening I know, 8-4 here was stupid. e5, h2, b2, and then I start to play more or less well, more or less, but in the time travels, I didn't play so good. I made many mistakes during all the game, but okay, my opponent made more mistakes than me, so I finally take the game. So after that, I have 2 points of three. So let's see how continues the tournament. Bye bye.